the Reebok Stadium, home of Bolton Wanderers Football Club. 3 times they finished as high as 3rd in the top flight of English football, but their greatest achievements have been in the FA Cup. They've appeared in the final 7 times, winning the trophy on 4 of those occasions. Without any doubt, their greatest ever player was Nat Lofthouse. Between 1946 and 1960, he scored a record 285 goals in 503 appearances. Between 1950 and 1958, Nat was capped 33 times for England, scoring 30 goals, one of the highest goals per game ratio achieved by any player representing England at senior level. Goalkeeper Eddie Hopkinson was another of the club's iconic players who set the appearances record of 578, playing from 1952 to 1970. Eddie also earned 14 caps for England. Former defender Sam Allardyce played 231 games for Wanderers in 2 spells from 1973 until 1986. He became manager in 1999 and in his 8 years led Bolton to the League Cup final in 2004 and into the UEFA Cup in 2005 for the first time in the club's history. He repeated this feat 2 seasons later. Their names are all here in the club's walkway of fame, just outside the main reception of the Reebok Stadium. And so too is this name, the Reverend Joseph Farrell Wright. He's the club's founder. The history of Bolton Wanderers started here. On this site stood a church called Christ Church, and in 1871 the Reverend Joseph Farrell Wright came here as vicar. It was a very poor and deprived area, many of the people earning their living from low wages in factories and mills that were nearby. It was a big sacrifice for Wright to come here with his wife and 4 young children. They'd been living in fashionable Silverwell Street, very close to St. Peter's Church, where he was working as an assistant curate. St. Peter's was the mother church of Bolton. But the call to the poor was irresistible, and Wright came here with his family. He built a deep, close relationship with the parishioners, who regarded him as a loving minister and firm friend. His concern for the poor was so great that he became actively involved with the Bolton Poor Protection Society, and he did whatever he could to help the people of this area, frequently visiting their homes and assisting in any way possible. Wright was to remain at Christ Church for the rest of his life, but remarkably there is no known picture of him. The only record we have of him here are samples of his handwriting in the logbooks of the Boys and Girls School in the building that stood opposite, known as Christ Church Schools. It was Wright's friendship with the headmaster of the boys' school that was to lead to the birth of Bolton Wanderers. It was a very, very tough area, and it was a very, very tough job for the headmaster of that school, Tom Ogden, who came here a week before his 23rd birthday. It was so tough that they couldn't recruit teachers to help him, or if they came, they didn't stay for very long. It was a tough assignment. Behaviour was dreadful, punctuality was dreadful, gangs roamed the area who would sometimes disrupt the lessons. He couldn't even count on the support of parents because they would often keep the children away from school to earn extra money in the local factories and mills. But despite this, Ogden was able to improve things. He was a devout Christian, and on the strength of his faith, he was able to find the inspiration to turn things round. Within a year, the inspector's report said, the tone of this school has improved. The real turning point came in 1871 when Joseph Wright was appointed vicar of Christ Church. With Wright behind him, the school went from strength to strength. In fact, the HMI reports indicate this very clearly. In 1872, the report read, The order is good, the extra subjects were well done, and the results of the examination gave proofs of careful teaching. A year later, the inspection report read, "The order is good, and the boys are taught with much vigour and success." The report also noticed the spirituality in the school and recorded the following. The school as a whole did well. The influences at work in the school seemed to be of a directly religious kind. This obviously is a reflection of Tom Ogden's deep Christian faith. Well, Ogden was a great football enthusiast, and although Wright himself didn't play football, he didn't have great interest in the game in that sense, he was a believer that football could engender Christian qualities of character in young men. For example, courage, fair play, unselfishness, you play for the team, not for yourself, and self-control. Wright had heard that a new form of football was being played in the nearby village of Turton, and he wondered if this was something that the boys of the Christchurch Sunday School could take up. Intrigued at this prospect, he sent Ogden to Turton to investigate. It was played here on this pitch. It's been in continuous use since 1830 and makes it therefore the oldest pitch in the world with an ongoing use. Ogden gave an enthusiastic account of the game to Wright, and Wright thought, well, let's see if the Sunday school boys will go for it, and he asked Ogden to speak to them. They were enthusiastic, and in June 1874 Christchurch Football Club was born. Ogden was captain, Wright was president. Everything went really well with the new club for some 3 years, until it was plunged into crisis in 1877. The reason, quite simply, was that Wright, as president, took his role very seriously and insisted he should be present at all committee meetings. Now, the boys took exception to this. They wondered why he needed to be so authoritarian. Well, it's very likely it was because they'd been swearing on the pitch, some didn't attend meetings, and some didn't let the secretary know in good time if they couldn't turn up for matches. And with the club playing in the name of his church, I think it was very clear that Wright wanted to ensure that the good name of the church was not tarnished. The boys didn't like this at all and decided in the end they'd had enough. They were going to break with him and the church, and that's the decision they made. And so they realised they could no longer use the Sunday school building as their headquarters and had to find another. They found the Gladstone Hotel very close to Pikes Lane, where their pitch was. But then came the problem of a new name. At their final committee meeting at the Sunday school in August 1877, they had an inspired idea. Because they'd had to wander in search of a new home, they decided to call themselves Bolton Wanderers. Despite the change of name and the parting of the ways, Bolton Wanderers have never forgotten the debt they owe to Joseph Wright. After all, without him, the club just wouldn't exist. When I found his neglected grave in the churchyard here at Christchurch Walmsley, just outside Bolton, they immediately decided to restore it and add the words "Founder of Bolton Wanderers Football Club" to the inscription. In June 2008, a special service of commemoration was held here at the church for Wright at the time his grave was rededicated. We've also seen that a memorial brick was placed in the walkway of fame outside the Reebok Stadium. These are all fitting tributes to the man who created their club. But perhaps the greatest tribute is seen today in the life and culture of the club, as its chaplain Phil Mason explains.
We here at Bolton Wanderers believe that we are in the heart of the community, and we've got the community at our heart. And one of the schemes that has been introduced with the passion of Phil Gartside, our chairman, is that of working with young people who, for whatever reason, because of their background and their contacts, have actually been dropped out of formal education, and teaching them education but using sport as the vehicle to do that. So I find it fascinating that our founder, our history, is now being repeated and refreshed in a new and positive way for the 21st century. Within our squad there are people of all faiths and none, and some of those people take their faith very seriously and are very committed, and it's very important to them. And so, for example, before every first team game, there is an opportunity for players to come and to gather for prayer. We never pray for a win, but we always pray for wisdom, for guidance, and for any matters that the players themselves bring to my attention.
In March 2012, one of those players, Fabrice Muamba, collapsed unconscious during a cup tie against Tottenham Hotspur. He was pronounced clinically dead for 78 minutes. The media went mad.
It's the only time I can remember that prayer and faith is on the front page of every British newspaper. Fabrice Muamba himself has got a very strong faith, as his family, and to be there at the bedside and to be praying with Fabrice and the family was an incredible privilege. There was no doubt in Fabrice's father's mind, Marcel, that prayer would be answered. There was no doubt in Shona, his fiancée's mind, that prayer would be answered. And it was incredible to see their strength of faith in the face of incredible adversity. It had a huge effect all around our players, our staff, our supporters.
Not least of all, the club's chairman, Phil Gartside.
The thing that really struck me on when Fabrice had his unfortunate illness was the fact that the power of prayer and the power of the faith that the people around him had, and made me realise that there was really something in this. So it's made a big difference to me.
If Joseph Wright were here today, he'd be very happy to hear words like these.